graduate from high school, degree out the trap. Trillion, sleep on me, get woke. Diamonds on the Gulf of Mexico. I hope you got a boat. Talking down on my name, swallow your words. I hope you talk. I made her pay for the. I don't pay for these. Hashtag easy boy. Young trendsetter. I need all my paper like they sending me a letter. Playing on that night, boy, you better be careful. Turn your life into judgment day when you play with a blue devil. I go to war with you. I won't party you. We eating, you starving, you go in, I go hard, little nigga. Feel like a fool. Talk later, first show. You know I'ma kill it. Like KNT, I'm by my bitch. Looking at my watch, you know what time it is. Just punch the clock, you know what time it is. I might take your, you know what time it is. Wrist from head to toe, you know what time it is. 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 You know what time it is.
Sure, light one up for me, homie. You know I can't smoke no more.
I'ma shoot my shot, I'ma shoot my shot, baby, I'ma shoot my shot. I'ma shoot my shot, baby, tryna shoot my shot.
Hello.
Check.
I'ma take you with me all the way to the top. And when I'm in the pink, baby, I'ma shoot my shot. Ooh, yeah. Quit it like me. You ain't buying nothing, baby, everything free. You should quit it like me. I'm an OG.
Worst thing the girl could do is tell me no. I don't get mad, I found drop it in the bag and sell another foe. I say love, homie, she say hella flow. I don't say hello, I say FWM. Got a couple to stick, a couple of slims. Got a couple of pics, a couple on film. Got the magic stick, a couple of Kim. It go down in the DM. I'ma hold her down till they free him. She say that my got it TL. My nigga, relax, slow down, I think she out of your league. You gon' still shoot your shot, I say do Cali got keys. Long as she 21 with a valid ID. I'ma float like a butterfly, Muhammad Ali. I'ma shoot my shot like I'm Curry. I'ma shoot my shot, but I ain't thirsty.
I'ma take you with me all the way to the top. And when I'm in the pink, baby, I'ma shoot my shot. Ooh, yeah. Quit it like me. You ain't buying nothing, baby, everything free. You should quit it like me. I'm an OG.
I'ma shoot my shot for that. She just hit the flop, now I'm like, oh, suck it. Hey, name drop for the nigga. Got your main thing and nothing but some socks playing footsie. If you want some, you need some lipstick. We don't send no pics, that's some lame shit. I'ma shoot my shot like it's game 6. I'ma shoot my shot, MJ wrist. Hit her with the eyes. Buy wings and fries, get it super size. You shoot your shot, could be a big shot. She just might reply, you gon' be surprised. I'ma shoot my shot. Talking 3 seconds left on the clock. Jumping head first off the dock. She gon' either with me or not, but if she do, then
I'ma take you with me all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And when I'm in the pink, baby, I'ma shoot my shot. Ooh, yeah. Quit it like me. You ain't buying nothing, baby, everything free. You should quit it like me. I'm an OG. I'ma take you with me all the way to the top. And when I'm in the pink, baby, I'ma shoot my shot.
When you quit it like me, you ain't buying nothing, baby, everything free. You should quit it like me.
We got a conversation coming up with Brandon Mims coming up in just a few moments, y'all. It's the radio show.
The night is young, it's just begun. Oh my God, I'm so turned up, so turned up, so turned up. All this drink up in my cup. Turn this up, you know it bump. Keep some drink up in my cup. From the function to the after party, keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. 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 The rock got me so turned up. Keep some drink up in my cup. Oh my gosh, I got a buzz. Keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. 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 She don't leave the house unless I make a bone. Dance in the mirror to her favorite song. No panties, replace the thong. She came to the club all alone. Just her ID and the phone. It feels so right, but it's also wrong. Ha ha, shorty, I'ma keep playing along till I get the chance to take her home. Turn this up, you know it bump. Keep some drink up in my cup. From the function to the after party, keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. 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 The rock got me so turned up. Keep some drink up in my cup. Oh my gosh, I got a buzz. Keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. 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 I'm turned up. Let's party to the AM. Let's spin bucks. Every night's a celebration, especially when you party with celebrities. All we do is count them G's. We don't expect to get in that club for free. Boy, we get in that club for free. Now turn this up, you know it bump. Keep some drink up in my cup. From the function to the after party, keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. 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 The rock got me so turned up. Keep some drink up in my cup. Oh my gosh, I got a buzz. Keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. DJ, this my favorite song. DJ, this my favorite song. DJ, this my favorite song.
Yeah, that's good.
Turn this up, you know it bump. Keep some drink up in my cup. From the function to the after party, keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. 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 The rock got me so turned up. Keep some drink up in my cup. Oh my gosh, I got a buzz. Keep some drink up in my cup. DJ, this my favorite song. DJ, this my favorite song. DJ, this my favorite song. DJ, this my favorite song.
Brandon, are you there? Brandon, are you there? Brandon, are you there? Brandon, are you there? Brandon, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let me switch ones. I'm sorry. Let me switch cameras for you. I'm sorry. Okay. You were there a second ago, right? Oh, okay. Okay. Shoot the shoe. Oh, bam. All right, we're good. All right, we're good. All right, we're going to get started now. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Put this in here. Check, check, check. 1 2 1 2. We can interrupt this song for a very special interview. As I did state, we had somebody running for the treasurer of Compton. They're now here in the building tonight, and we're going to talk to them right now. Joining us now, we got Brandon Sims in the building. Brandon, what's going on with you, man?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, man. Yeah, so now you're running for a treasurer of Compton, right?
Yeah, I'm running for city treasurer.
Okay.
So for those of you who have your ballots, or well, the ballots will be coming out this week. That's number one on the ballot, Brandon Mims, for city treasurer. Yes.
Okay. All right, Brandon Mims. Okay, so you're running number one. So tell us what exactly does a treasurer do? Well, first, before we start there, let me start. Let me take them back because you're rooted in Compton. You're born and raised in Compton. You got the city. You know the city really well. So tell us about your upbringing in the city of Compton.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, born and raised here in Compton. Went to local school for elementary, middle school. Went to Compton High School. So pretty much grew up in the community. You know, did participated in like the local community organizations. I did a couple of summers at Compton College. Youth sports. Um, in high school, participated in leadership. So I was, in and around civics. Beginning as early as high school. So, and then I went to college, and then I actually came back and worked in the city. So, I have experience in the city as as a professional public administrator, then also just as a resident living here. Yeah.
Okay. So what made you get into that as far as being want to be a treasurer and do you always have a a love for well I mean we all got love for money but as far as on a major scale like you are what made you get into that?
So, in specifically finance, I think is one of the areas where we lack a lot of education in urban communities. For as long as I can remember, we've had programs in the community to sort of protect us from predatory lending, other types of predatory tools that come in to like suck equity, out of the house and or out of the community through, mortgages, refinances. And so we lose a lot of equity in the community that way. Out of the house and or out of the community through, mortgages, refinances. And so we lose a lot of equity in the community that way.
Oh,
Out of the house
okay.
and
Let me
or
turn
out of the
that down.
community through,
Why is that double? Okay, let me turn that down. Sorry about that.
it's all right.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay, so now that brings you now. You're running for treasurer of Compton. So tell us what exactly does the treasurer do?
Yeah, so the
Yeah, it's all good.
is
Okay, so
the
now
city
that brings you now. You're running for treasurer of Compton. So tell us what
responsible for
exactly does the treasurer do?
investments, the cashiering operation in the city, internal controls in the city for cash operations. Uh, then there's a big part of the city treasurer's responsibility that's to report out to the public on what the status of investments are, revenues, uh, what checks have been paid, what checks are still outstanding. So the city treasurer is a critical part of the dais, is elected department head. So with that comes a lot of responsibility as far as management inside the city hall. So it's a pretty large role that a lot of residents don't understand because frequently we don't expect for elected officials to have that type of like everyday functional responsibility. But in this case, like the city treasurer is just as important as the city attorney and the city clerk. You want to make sure that those people are on their jobs.
Okay. Now, that's good.
That's good. Now, why should we elect you as far as being the treasurer of the city of Compton? So there's a plethora of reasons why, but I think one of the highest ranking reasons is because we want a forward thinking 21st century city treasurer's office that has the ability to provide for all um, like all levels of the community. So we have our business community um, that needs services, business licensing, uh, needs to be able to interact with City Hall easily, without coming down. That creates a burden on doing business with the city. And then, of course, we have our resident community, which, is split up amongst different, we have youth, we have young adults, we have mature adults, have our senior groups. We need to, be looking at, how we provide and how those populations need to interact with City Hall. So, our e-payment system. So if you go to a park, you should be able to pay for the fees at the park. Um, if you go in to pay for your water bill, you should be able to pay for your water bill at a park. So a citywide e-payment system that would be contactless, so that residents would be able to easily access the services at City Hall. Next, we have, my plan for how we can reduce property taxes. How we can increase liquidity so we can get our street projects done, and then also just more forward thinking, plans for how we can do investment. So those initiatives separate me from the other candidates who, want to run a more traditional, city treasurer's office model that really has a low service to the residents, but then also at the same time, high cost.
Okay. Now, being an outsider looking in, I live in Inglewood, so I'm outside and looking in as far as what's happening in the city of Compton. Now, you guys were going through some things at the time. There was some money that was taken from the city. Was it $3 million or something like that? Can you educate me on that, and what will you do differently to make sure something like that won't happen again?
Yeah. So we had, actually, while I was the deputy city controller, working in the city, we had a cash loss from the city treasurer's office of, we quantified it at $3.7 million. But what was basically happening is there was an employee in the treasurer's office that was manipulating cash receipts. Uh, so what happens at the end of the day, just like at a bank, the folks who are taking in payments, the cashier, they will balance out their cash registers, and then those cash registers are, simply and by another layer of management. So that next layer of management was manipulating the cash receipts of the, various cash registers, fake cash, and putting it in and walking out of the hall. So that we don't know how long, that was occurring, but the period that we at least, we look back at least 6 years. So uh, cash that was missing, where it was right there, in the bank reconciliations for the city. So there were different failures. There was, of course, the cash controls was where you first control. You want to have, strong controls around cash so that people don't have the opportunity to steal, because theft is an opportunistic crime and create the opportunity, then people likely. And then a controller need to have a more active bank reconciliation process. So, you know, outstanding transactions that have been posted to the checking account will be caught. Uh, but we failed on both sides of that. But I think as treasurer, your first responsibility, is to protect the city's cash that is in your office. And so one of the easiest things and ways to do that would have just been to double check, have a separation of duties on who balances and does the cash balance out for the day. If that was happening, then that employee wouldn't have had as much opportunity, well, could have been caught sooner and possibly wouldn't have been able to steal as much money. So the residents' concern there is, with an elected city treasurer, that's a full-time job. So you should be in the office, and your primary duty should be watching the city's cash, making sure that, people aren't stealing, because, on the other side of it, you have your investment role, but what good is it to invest money if, you're going to let people walk out the door with it? So definitely, that was a big issue, and it's still an issue because we have departments still that may be collecting cash, and so anywhere we have a cash collection in the city, we want to eliminate that and bring that into the treasurer's office, just to reduce those possible instances of theft or fraud.
Okay, so now you have a checks and balance system that makes sure that something like that won't happen again. So the residents of Compton can be safe.
Right. So, the separation of duties to make sure that the same folks that aren't, working the cash register aren't the same people that are balancing it out for the day. Um, you know, More internal controls as far as our banking procedures, our relationship with our banking institution. With that large of deposits in transit going to the bank for that many years, I think we should have had a relationship with our banking institution that would have flagged that too. So, improving that relationship, and then just overall, what's happening with the internal controls inside City Hall. And again, one of the things, that's important is you have to be in City Hall. You have to be there working on these issues every day. And so that's what we want to change in City Hall. In the treasurer's office, we want to have a more active, more proactive city treasurer that is helping to resolve the issues as opposed to waiting for the issues to just, present themselves and then have to be in a very reactionary way.
Okay, if
Okay.
you just
If you just
joining us now,
joined us
we're in a
now, we're in a
conversation with
conversation with
Brandon
Brandon
Mims.
Mims.
He's running
He's
for the
running for the
city of
city of
treasurer
treasurer
in the
in the
upcoming election
upcoming
for the
election
city
for
of
the city of
Compton. Make
Compton. Make
sure
sure
if you live in the
if
city
you
of
live in the city
Compton,
of
you have
Compton, you have
a
a
ballot.
ballot.
Make sure
Make
you
sure you
vote.
vote.
Okay, we're not
Okay.
telling
When
you
I
to
tell
vote
you to
for,
vote
but
for,
make
but
sure you
make sure
vote.
you vote.
Just vote.
Just vote.
Use your
Use
voice.
your
Use your
voice. Use your
power.
power.
Bring change
Bring
to the
change to
city
the
of
city of
Compton.
Compton.
Now,
Now,
Brandon, you
Brandon, you
also have
also have
a
a
five-step
five-step
plan
plan
that you
that you
want to
want
roll
to
out
roll out
if you're
if you're
elected as city
elected as city
treasurer.
treasurer.
Can you go over
Can you
your
go over your
five-step plan
five-step
real
plan
quick?
real quick?
Yeah, so we got the 5-star plan, and the 5-star plan is a resident
About
first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean it's what just as long as we know it's out there.
Okay.
um, the five, how many everything we call it, the whatever, the 5 bullet plan.
Okay.
It essentially a plan. The strategy is resident first approach at bringing resources back into the community. So one of the things that I'm committed to is only paying out on demands that are properly audited. So definitely no same day payments flowing out of City Hall for special interests. We want to make sure that every requisition is properly evaluated, purchase order, and then ultimately check adheres to the city's purchasing policy. As part of the strategy, we want to look at how we can improve the streets by making sure that we're not doing patchwork street improvement projects, which has a lot to do with the liquidity of the funds that are available to do the projects. So, if we are looking at transportation projects and looking at, bond funding, is the bond funding flowing? What are we doing? Working with the city controller and the trustee, to make sure that, those funds are going to be ready to go so that when we have that contract go across the dais, and it is issued, then those checks can flow out of the city control. I'm sorry, out of the city treasurer's office, and we don't have, just half of a street project done. So in that way, I think the city treasurer can help, help the city make better investments in road repairs and street improvements. By looking at the funding that's available, again, liquidity, how much of it can we get done right now? And and then helping make decisions about what areas would be best to do based on what funding availability is
Yeah,
available.
that was the
That
big
was the
thing
big
out there in
thing out there in
Compton about the
Compton about the
potholes and all
potholes and
that.
all
So
that.
that's
So
going to be
that's going to be
rectified, right?
rectified, right?
Yeah, I mean, so what we want to do is we don't want to do half of a street anymore because, well, we just had the money to do this much of the street.
Hmm.
We need to have come forward with, the best plan possible to make investments in our streets. And
Right.
so, yes, possible we're going to get rid of potholes by prioritizing payments to contractors that do street repairs, do graffiti removal, do trash removal, all of our quality of life issues, board up stuff, do blight removal on these, some lawns. Even in the cases of where the treasurer's office needs to be more active aesthetically out in the community, working with businesses on collecting business licensing and then working with code enforcement on the visual aesthetics of the facades of the businesses. So again, a city treasurer's office that's working, with the other city departments to help create value in the city. So, we have one of the major duties is investments. And so we want to look at and restructure the city's cash holdings so that we can get more interest revenue.
Hmm.
There are other opportunities outside of our primary investment tool or tool that we use, which I would say would be LAIF. We have some opportunities to look at, commercial paper, securities, bonds, other instruments that might produce a higher yield in a future period for some projects that the residents want, like a skating arena or a movie theater or,
Right.
some project that would add value again to the community.
Hmm.
Um, so of course, I think it's important that we have, the e-payment system. right? So the e-payment system is going to do more than just, reduce your fees for your water bill. It's also going to allow you to interface with City Hall on other things that fines. If you get a fine, unfortunately, a ticket, parking ticket, you know, the goal with this type of system is to increase collection of revenue, right? So yes, we always know there's going to be some folks who want to come down to City Hall and you know make their payment. So of course we're gonna always have a counter, but where possible, we want to increase revenue collection, and that would be water bill payments, business license payments, fine payments, any types of payments. And so we want to measure the fee for providing that, because yes, there's a fee, the fee that is passed on to the collector of the charge, the charge fee, the visa fee or whatever. We want to weigh that against having the revenue on hand sooner. So if people are paying their bills sooner because of the e-payment system, which is typically what is experienced, then you have money on hand, you're making interest on that money. So the actual fee that you're paying, could potentially be negligible, as once it comes to the bottom line.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
like the package, of what I want to deliver, to the residents, that I think would, number one, improve quality of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole, what you want your elected officials to be looking out for,
Right.
is your quality of life. Because again, you don't have time to go out and make sure that the city is properly paying bills. You don't have the time to go out and make sure that the investments are in the right place. So you want to be able to trust those elected officials and, hope that they have your best interests at heart.
Okay. Let me ask you two final things before we let you go. Got Brandon Mims. He's running for city treasurer. Make sure you vote. If you have your ballot, you can mail it in right now. You go ahead and vote for Brandon. Make sure you go ahead and do that if you live in the city of Compton. A couple things I want to know as far as the homeowners are concerned. Number one, people that are interested in starting a small business out there in the city of Compton, grants and for small businesses. What is that going to be an avenue that's going to be open for them if you're elected?
So one of the things I think the treasurer can do to work with businesses is to perhaps sponsor in a proactive way, bringing a small business program into the city. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
typically that's something you're going to see managed by community development department.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have small businesses that are existing in the city that are having issues, perhaps meeting compliance issues, as part of our, you know, as part of being a community partner, I think the treasurer's office could reach out and bridge, and so, by providing small business assistance grants, partnership with the Small Business Assistance Center,
Mm-hmm.
micro enterprise loans, perhaps through the city's existing community development block grant programs,
Right.
right, of targeted neighbor, well, in this case business improvement programs. In some areas they will have business improvement districts, where businesses can get together, and they pay, and then they can essentially have certain improvements in that area.
Mm-hmm.
In the city in a more pro business direction all over, I think will help the small business community, in the end. Now directly targeted as small business, like I said, the city has the ability to develop micro enterprise programs, which, if there was not enough capacity, the treasurer's office could definitely get involved, making sure that the funds get out to those businesses in a timely manner. Perhaps, in working on the tracking, there will be, perhaps, other tracking mechanisms that have to be in place on the money, helping with that part. So I think, a more proactive treasurer's office overall is definitely going to help the small business community and be a change from what we have now. Right now, we're very not business friendly. I think
Okay.
most people who the city as business seeking to do business are business owners. Um, they kind of get crushed a little bit, by the red tape that can be, around or prevent people from getting businesses. So, you have seen a lot of different types of new business popping up in the city, like the pop ups, been in grocery outlet market and the food trucks and other areas that are sort of trying to meet the gap of where we lack sort of some niche, market and retail. So I think, there's definitely a place for small business. And, when I become city treasurer, I would be looking forward to working with the business licensing and community development folks on how we could, develop a proactive program to, number one, go out and collect our business license fee, but then also as part of that, provide resources to the businesses so that they have a partner, in the city.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And last
And
thing
last
but
thing
not
but not
least,
least,
regentrification is
regentrification
going
is
on.
going
A lot
on.
of
A lot of
people are,
people are,
of
of
us are being
us are being
forced
forced
out
out
by the
by
cities
the
like
cities like
Compton.
Compton.
So
So
as far
as
as that
far as that
as far as
as
that's
far as that's
concerned,
concerned,
how are we
how are we
handling that?
handling that?
Is it going to
Is
be
it going to
money
be money
available for
available for
first time
first
home
time home
buyers, people
buyers,
of
people of
color? There's
color? The
special
special
grants are going to
grants
be
are going to be
available
available
for
for
minorities.
minorities.
Where do you
Where
stand
do
on
you
that?
stand on that?
Yeah, when I came to the city actually working in housing, and finance, housing, grants administration, community development, and then I actually continued working in that area, a lot of the financing of projects. And what we learned working in that area is, you know, there are um, there are opportunities in Compton for us to, create value, but we have to educate our residents about holding with the importance of home ownership.
Hmm.
I mean, because there are some things that a city government cannot control, right? So
Right.
unfortunately, city government cannot control these rising housing prices in Southern California.
Hmm.
Now, what we can do as a city treasurer, perhaps, and even definitely as a city council person, is get out and advocate about the importance of ownership
Hmm.
and what that means in the long run for communities. As we look at voting and how congressional districts are drawn, and how redistricting happens in cities. The less ownership we have in an area,
Hmm.
then the less control we have over what happens in that area. And so we have seen, that happen in other areas, like you mentioned. Um, I think that, the challenge for, again, for residents like me, like myself,
Hmm.
who just bought,
Hmm.
I bought here, well, I had a house, but I bought another house here.
Okay.
And, you know, because I wanted to live in a particular area in a house, my property taxes are now almost $9,000 a year, whereas my first house, was only like $4,000 a year.
Of course.
You know, see those rising property taxes. Those are the property taxes that you would have seen perhaps in like a San Francisco or somewhere up north. I definitely, not in central Southern California.
Of
I mean, we
course.
have 88 cities in LA County, and most of them are experiencing housing crisis right now. So this is an unprecedented housing crisis in California, especially Southern California. So I think the number one thing would be holding on to the homes that we have, because again that control, that's a lot of how your stake, your voting, your stake in the franchise occurs. And then the second part of that would be increasing ownership in areas where we still have affordability. So we want to move folks from um, rental areas where they could own into ownership, because eventually those rental areas will become unaffordable for those same folks. And so at least if they buy, when you buy, you stop the price of your housing from going up. So that's another thing that we need to push hard, to push back on, gentrification and things like that, is, just pushing the importance of ownership in areas where there's still affordability. So I feel strongly about that. I wish there was more, that the city could do as by way of, educating the residents. But it's such a task doing the basics. I'm sure you've seen and driven through the city. You know, we want to protect our residents from everything,
Hmm.
but we gotta keep the streets, without potholes. We gotta provide public safety, and our parks are closed. We, have dumping, illegal dumping, a big issue with illegal dumping. So we have the full cadre of, and then you tack on to that, there's a lot of apathy essentially in our community. So, we have a lot of work to do by way of getting to, valuing home ownership as the number one thing in our community. But,
Yeah.
definitely can get on that path by, starting to work now.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
Brandon, I
Well,
want to
Brandon, I
thank
want
you
to
for
thank you
joining
for
me
joining me
today,
today,
right here,
right here,
and
and
we look
we
forward to
look
keep,
forward to keep,
good luck to
good
you in the
luck to you in the
election, and
election,
down the
and
road,
down the
hopefully, we
road,
can get
hopefully we can
you
get you
on here
on here
as the
as the
official
official
city
city
treasurer of
treasurer of
Compton.
Compton.
All right. Well, no, thank you. I appreciate this. And, any opportunity just to the folks out there that you have to meet the candidates or to learn more about the candidates, I would just encourage all Compton residents to do so. To know who you're voting for. And, like you said, of course, make sure you get out and vote. So all mail elections. So, you just return your ballot and you have voted.
All right,
All
there it
right,
is.
there it
Don't
is.
don't just
Don't
go out
just
and
go out
vote.
and
That's all
vote.
we
That's
want
all
you
we
to
want you
do.
to do.
And Brandon,
And
good luck
Brandon,
to
good
you
luck
on
to you
that.
on that.
And down the
And
road,
down
we'll
the
get you
road, we'll
back
get you
on
back
on the
on
show.
the
We'll
show.
talk
We'll
about
talk about
what you've
what
done
you've
and how
done
you've
and how you've
changed
changed
Compton
Compton
since you now
since
the
you now
the new
the new
treasurer.
treasurer.
Okay,
Okay,
All right. Thank you, sir.
no
no
problem.
problem.
Joining me
Joining
later
me
on, I
later
got
on, I got
BSGG Little
BSGG Little
Man
Man
coming up on
coming up on
IG
IG
interview as
interview as
well.
well.
Also tonight
Also
during the
tonight
radio
during the
show,
radio
we
show,
got
we
LA
got
Buck
LA Buck
joining
joining
myself,
myself,
MD,
MD,
artist
artist
Monique,
Monique,
Mary
Mary
Alex,
Alex,
and B
and B
Love. Hopefully
Love.
everybody
Hopefully
show up
everybody
for
show
that
up for that
tonight.
tonight.
It is
It
going
is going
down.
down.
Stay right
Stay
here,
right
man.
here,
More to
man. More
come.
to
The
come. The
radio
radio
show.
show.
You want a fresh style? Let me show you. Radio show breaking news. Music.
I've been searching. I found myself looking for someone to hold, someone to fill the void and forever. Love as real as itself, but it never stays. I call it the great escape. Oh, catch me again, finding comfort in the new. I should know better. I should know better. Passions waiting for. Give me for my sins. Oh, I should know better. I should know better. Boy, you don't own me, and I was just lonely. Hey, it's not my fault. It's not your fault. Boy, you know you've been here before. I'm numb to your touch, and I'm immune to your love. Dark, I'm numb to your touch, and I'm immune to your love. Dark, yeah. Gucci, Louis, Prada, diamonds, don't get you nada. Gucci, Louis, Prada, diamonds, don't get you nada. He got the power, no, he never did, yeah. Your hero of the hour, he was heaven sent. No time for easy shady men. I'll find your comfort from within, and I can tell you gave it in, but don't you let him in, no, no. Oh, catch me again, finding comfort in the little. I should know better. I should know better.